blunt on this one. Buyers, as we all know, don't believe that you, as a real estate agent, do shit to earn your commission. And today's guest was introduced to me by a guy you all know. His name's Tristan. And he has developed a product that by my equations doesn't exist, hasn't existed because we've never had a need for it. And I'm excited to share this product and idea with you today, which is going to change the value that you can now present to your buyers so they understand that what they're paying you is probably actually underpayment for all of the time and energy that you put in to the work that you do on every real estate transaction. So without further ado, I've got the co-CEO of Raise, which is the company we're going to talk about today, but he so happens to be the co-CEO of Next Home as well. James Dwiggins, welcome, my friend.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
So, James, let's start here. Obviously, I've tickled this one. We know what we're going to talk about, but I think it's always important to you validate who the hell you are and where you come from. So, who are you? Where do you come from? What led you to where we are today?
Well, again, thanks for having me on the pod. I've been in real estate my entire life. My grandfather started his real estate company in 1967. Both my grandparents were brokers. Both my parents were brokers. I worked for their company early on. Then I started a couple prop tech companies that I sold in the late 2000s, early and late 2000s. And then I got into the franchising side of real estate where I worked for a regional franchise in Northern California called Realty World. Ended up buying that business in 2014, then started another franchise called Next Home, which is now 630 offices across the US. So I've been in real estate my entire life. I'm an SOB. So it's son of a broker. You can take it out of the way. I understand this business. I've been, living and breathing it from day one. I was around when the MLS book was here, just for context. So I have a lot of historical perspective. And, I think that there's certainly no shortage of drama in our business these days. Everyone's talking about it. I've been very vocal about a lot of the issues that we're facing as an industry. But one that we certainly have just gone through is these massive lawsuits that we've been dealing with these class action lawyers on. I'm a named defendant in one of them. So my company was part of the $2 billion club. It was great. I had to go through all of the legal defense costs and settling along with a lot of the other CEOs of the business. But several years ago, when I looked at these lawsuits that were occurring, I was in the minority, but I thought we were going to lose these cases. And I thought these cases were going to go, ironically, exactly where they went, which was losing the trial and then settling. And in that world where we're headed, where you're going to continue to see cooperative compensation separated, where you're going to see buyers agents have to justify their compensation much more clearly and articulately to consumers. I had an idea along with my co-founders of creating a product that provides transparency into what realtors actually do. And because it's a lot and people just don't think that we do anything. So I did a study last year, and this will be really interesting for you, Jeff. So we did a study with Wave Group, and we asked a whole bunch of buyers a series of questions, and the only one that's relevant was, how much time do you think your agent spends helping you buy a house? 46% of all respondents, which was over 500 of them, said less than 15 hours. I'm going to let everybody marinate on that for a second. So half of all home buyers think you spend less than 15 hours helping them buy a house. And the reason is they don't understand what the hell we do, because we suck at articulating our value to buyers. We don't know how to show them everything that's involved in the process. And I'll leave you with this, and then I'll shut up so you can ask questions. If you think about the average buyer's agent, you're going to tour 8 to 15 houses depending upon market conditions. You've got drive time. You call the listing agent or you set up the showing. You drive to the showing after you talk to your buyer. You show them the property. You go back out to the driveway. You have a consult. They're like, I'd love more information. You go back to the office. You talk to the listing agent. You get a copy of the disclosure. You read the disclosure. You write an email with all the shit in the disclosure for the buyer. You ask them, do you want to write an offer? They say yes or no. You do that wash, rinse, repeat on 8 to 15 houses, and you're already 30 hours in with that buyer. The problem is the buyer doesn't see 90% of what I just said. And until you help them understand that there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes, they think you open doors, write a contract, get paid the gross commission, and that you make a shit ton of money when it couldn't be further from the truth. And so what we've developed is an application. We spent 2 years building this with all sorts of investor money from the industry, literally MLSs, associations, brokerages, teams, et cetera, to build a product that's automated and literally grabs this data, gamifies it, and gives the buyer this experience to see everything the agent's going to do. And as it's occurring, it's updating them in real time. And it's been just awesome to see agents deploy this. And the entire conversation shifts from trying to explain what the hell I do to here's what's going to go on, here's the path, here's the work and time based upon current market conditions, and the accountability that you can have overseeing this entire process with me as we go through this experience. And so it's been a really fun journey to be able to get to this point.
That's fascinating. And, you know, we talked off the air for a few minutes. James and I just met, which is not uncommon for me and my guests. But, you know, my first question was very simply, does a buyer care? Or maybe I should say it differently. Could it be perceived from a buyer that you're maybe acting a little defensive by
Yeah,
displaying said data?
that's a great question. So one of the things that we developed in this process, as you can imagine, it's with, the development of agents and brokers across the US. When we built the new type of presentation, we call it a buyer services presentation. So think of it as like your buyer consult. It's really incredibly well done because it's done in what we call levels. What I mean by that is it's a digital presentation and you can talk very high level with them. But if the buyer's asking you questions like wanting to get deeper, you can go to level 2, which starts to bring data forward, showing current market conditions. This is the amount of time it's going to take based upon what I've done with other buyers to get you into contract and get you into close, and the amount of activities. And if they're still pressing, you can go even deeper, and it lays out very clearly every single detail about what has to happen and what we call the 4 steps of a real estate transaction. There's the 16 different milestones and roughly 200 different outcomes that will occur in the process. So why I've prefaced it that way, the agent can stay as high level or go as detailed depending upon the unique case of buyer and what you're trying to get through. What the problem you have to remember is we're in a world now where we're signing buyer rep agreements. We're asking them to commit to us. We're asking them to work with us. We're charging them a fee. We're having a conversation with them now about, if the seller isn't willing to pay this, then you're going to be obligated to do this. And then you add in factors such as, a significant amount of pressure coming from outside sources, like what I talk about in my keynotes across the US, is my biggest thing that I'm most concerned about. It's not CCP, it's not Zillow. It's the fact that you got Rocket Mortgage just acquired Mr. Cooper. And in their investor deck, they are very, very clear about what they're going to try and do. Cut transaction costs in half by reducing the realtor commission, and then get an 83% recapture rate on deals that they're servicing through the loan, meaning they're servicing the homeowner. They're going to try to get them to sell with them again, buy with them again, finance with them again, do title with them again, and the agent isn't part of that. So in my mind, over the next 5 years, we're going to have to get really freaking good at explaining to a buyer why we charge what we charge, what we're offering them in return, because we're going to feel market pressures that are about cost. And the only way you're going to be able to charge what may be perceived as a premium is through convenience and service and articulation of value. We have just started to feel that as an industry, but we're at the first inning. I think you're going to see this become more of a conversation over the next 12 to 24 months as a lot of these industry shifts go. So a buyer may not care right now. They're used to it. They're gonna, because they're going to look at it and go, well, shit, if I can go buy a home with Rocket and save $20,000, you got to be very, very good at explaining why somebody should pay a premium for those services. Raises that. That's literally what we've built over the past 2 years.
To stay on the Rocket topic, because I know everybody's familiar with the headline, right?
Very people have gone to those details that a lot of us have gone into what they're going to do.
That's
So
That's it. That's my next question, because obviously you are versed in this. So what is that? What do you, whether you know it or don't know it, what does it look like? Is it going to be in-house agents, like order takers? What does that look like? So as a, I guess traditional real estate agent, we know what to be, prepare ourselves for.
So it's speculation. I don't work for Rocket, but I've read all of their investor material and I follow them a lot. People looked at the acquisition of Redfin and are like, whatever. Redfin didn't make any money. It wasn't a successful business. Wrong. They're the fourth largest portal in the United States with roughly 50 million unique visitors a month. You could take every real estate brokerage in the country and aggregate all of their traffic, and they wouldn't even equal what Redfin does on a monthly basis. Like, it's just, they're not even close. So it is a big thing, but that's not the big deal. The Rocket's acquisition of Mr. Cooper is the catch. So that was 1 out of every 6 loans in the United States is serviced by Mr. Cooper. Rocket's acquisition of Redfin brought employee-based agents over. If you look up the rules, employee-based agents don't have to follow the same. They're essentially excluded from the RESPA laws. So you can bundle real estate services, title, loan officer services, et cetera, into an experience when they're an employee of the organization. So Rocket's investor deck is very clear. They show the average real estate transaction costs being roughly $40,000 when you add in sell side compensation, buy side compensation, loan officer compensation, and title based on an average price home in the US. The next slide is they want to cut that to 20, a 50% haircut, which, to your point, Jeff, if you're employee-based agents, you're not making these commissions. They're going to use the realtor commission, in my opinion, as the loss leader to get attach rate on title, loan, etc. So they've got it in their deck. It's very clear in my mind what they're going to do. And the biggest thing that I'm concerned about is the recapture rate. Their target's 83%. So when you buy a house and they end up servicing it, and then they're incubating on your customer for 8 to 14 years, because our industry is awful at following up with our past clients. Everybody's smiling, who's listening to this now or watching. You don't think a company with 800 million in the bank is going to figure out how to service that loan and service that client and try to drip on them and get in between your relationship with them and get them to use their agent to sell again and then buy again and then do mortgage and title and then be in that ecosystem? They're going to have an impact. What, we don't know. But it absolutely, everything facing us is about realtor comp. It's what the lawsuits were about. It's what all the bad PR is about, blah, blah, blah. And what I'm trying to tell you is, and this is an interesting sort of take on it, I've already seen what agents are doing. They've been showing it to us going, shit, I had no idea I spent 120 hours working with this buyer because they looked at 20 damn houses and they're going through this process. Ironically, what's happening now is when you're sitting down and talking with the buyer, the agent's actually not defensive. They're getting more competent. They're going, I'm not going to work with a client where I have to spend 120 hours because you're not serious, or I need to fire some clients because I've been working with them for 2 years, or I had no idea I wasn't making shit because realtors don't have a P&L. I say this lovingly to all of you. I love you all dearly, but you don't have a P&L. You don't have a balance sheet. You don't track how much work you're doing. And if I show you that data, you'll go, well, let's see. Gross commission. Oh, by the way, you ready, Jeff? The buyer thinks you make the gross commission. They don't know that you've got to give 40% to Zillow, that you got to give a broker a percentage of that, that you're an independent contractor, so you've got state and federal income taxes, and you also have to pay both sides of Social Security and Medicare. You got 10 to 15% operational costs on top of it. And by the way, when you take all of that out, you take your gross commission, deduct that out, look at the number divided by the hours I'll tell you you're working, you're making $50 an hour. And I know this because I have the data, because we've been seeing it with agents that have deployed it. So we're in this interesting spot where you're going to see buyers put pressure. Agents have to get good at articulating value, but they need to, you asked me the question about defensive. It's not. See, the difference is I'm confident to talk about it because I know my worth and I know what I'm doing. 99% of the people listening to this have no idea how much work you're spending with a client. And if I show it to you, your conversations are going to be different. And what I've said for 2 years when we were building this product, agents that are good are going to charge more. What's happened, Jeff, with good agents in the market? They're charging more. Agents that are empowered by rates are also going to charge more because they're going to go, this is what it is. And every study that I've ever read from any company anywhere, consumers are willing to pay a premium for service and convenience. You can articulate those two, you'll be able to get people to pay what you're worth. But it's not going to be in the same way it is today. It can't be, I know all these people and my Rolodex, if, for those of you millennials, that's this card thing. But like, it's this whole different process that we need to move towards. And we're there. The product's in market. It's being deployed across the US now.
It's fascinating. You dropped a couple of nuggets there. The one about, in fact, I haven't seen updated data on this, but something like 90% of homeowners say they'll use their agent again, but only 13% do. And I think that data has actually gotten worse. I think it's like
It is like,
7% now or something like that.
yeah, it's
Not
bad that,
very,
yeah,
very
it's
bad.
bad. Yeah,
And then like you mentioned that agents don't know how to articulate their value. Now, I anticipate that this is going to be most useful once like you really just need one data set. Like you take it, you work with a buyer, you establish a data set. Now the next buyer you go sit down with, you say, okay, almost like you're presenting the 25-point marketing plan to sell their house, to list their house. It's here's my strategy on how I'm going to represent you as a buyer, which
correct.
now that you articulate it to me, I'm thinking to myself, buyers are going to fall off their chair. Like, what did you just say? I've never heard an agent say this to me ever before, which is going to create
Correct.
massive differentiation.
Correct. So we call it raise empowered agents. And so the product is three pieces. It's a buyer presentation that's all digital. It's designed for storytelling, allows the agent to talk about things, but it goes, as I mentioned, very granular into the amount of work. The agent can set it up all detailed the way they operate. It's all team oriented. They can invite people in. The client can come into it. It's awesome. It's just really, really cool what it does. Then there's the app. So the buyer gets connected to the agent as the agent's doing things, it's updating the buyer in real time. So they're seeing everything that's happened, like you and I talked about, kind of like the pizza tracker. It's just, here's what we're going to do and here's what happens. But don't think of it as transaction management. It's everything from the moment you meet the buyer to the moment you hand them the keys. So that's the piece of it. And then my favorite part, and this is the part I'm going to tie into your comment, it's the closing report. It's the best example I can give, and it's honestly where this idea came from. So me and my co-founders thought about this over 10 years ago, and it came from the fact I got a lawyer bill and I lost my shit because I was like, what in the hell do I have a $10,000 lawyer bill for? I'm just like, what the hell? And Jeff, what's in the lawyer bill? It's an itemized statement of every single thing that's occurred over the period of time. And you go, oh shit, I forgot about that phone call. Oh, I forgot about that. I forgot about that. I forgot about that. And then you realize, well, lawyers still make too much money. But the point is, there's all of this data here. The closing report, it's that. Only it's 30 pages of everything that transpired from 65 days ago till now. And to that comment that you made, this is the most important part. What all these agents are doing now is they're explaining the experience when they're empowered by Raise, but they're taking that closing report, they're handing it at the closing table. That's one way they're using it to justify the entire experience. But they're going on their next buyer consult with the previous closing report from a buyer they just worked with to show the new buyer that they're trying to get business with. Here's what's going to happen over the course of this time frame. And what I'm hearing now is when the buyer goes, oh, well, can you do it for X because so-and-so wants to charge X, which is less than what you are, the agents are going, sure. What would you like me to take out of all of this work? I don't want you to take anything out of the work. Okay, well then you can't ask me to do the same services as agent X who didn't provide any of this to you the way that I do. If you want the best and you want to see this and be transparent and have somebody advocating for you and do all of this shit correctly, then that's why I charge what I charge. So you mentioned this comment before, and I love these questions. It's not defensive. It's confidence. It's literally going in saying, hell no, I'm not discounting my shit. Like, that's rude to even ask. Look at the amount of work I got to do. Yeah. When you know your worth, you can articulate that clearly. When you don't know your worth, you get defensive. You try to come up with reasons as to why. That's the difference between agents that are using the product and not. Not all, but you get the idea. So
sure. Yeah. Well, that leads me to another stat that we haven't even mentioned, which was the stat, I think it was from last year, that something like 75% of licensed real estate agents didn't even close one transaction. I
Yeah.
mean, this is the kind of stuff that, and I know I'm guessing, James, I don't think the 75% actually listen to this podcast or any other podcast. They don't do anything to
No.
enrich themselves. They're just waiting for a deal to come, right? Which I think is such an advantage for the agents that do put the time and the effort into this, because now that you just learned about this, I personally, I don't sell real estate, but if I did, I'd probably show up to the closing table with it just to have it in case they saw the top line commission and
Agreed.
bitched. And then I would absolutely use it on my next buyer consult, right? Just like, this is what I do for you.
That's the cool
Um,
part is you use it in the way that you want, and because it's designed by people in the industry. Like, I mean, I run a big national real estate company, so
yeah.
it's we've thought through the use cases. So to your point, I would do the same thing. I bring it with me. I wouldn't rub it in their face, but if they got weird about it, being like, "Hey, can you throw a credit in here?" I'd be like, "Well,
Yeah. Yeah.
let's talk about what's actually gone on here." Now, I would also probably email it to them. And what's cool about the app is the experience is designed so that the closing report's also in the digital experience for the buyer. They're going to see it anyway before you get to the closing table, because when you close it out, it generates this digital experience of it. So you're going to have them already somewhat preconditioned to the amount of work that was there. I would still email it as like a thank you. Here's the overall. Like in the closing report, one of the things we did, which was really smart, it took a few iterations to do it. We show in the report every house you toured over the course of that transaction. And we toured it on this date. It was rejected, meaning like you didn't want to look at it, you want to pursue it any further, your reasoning why, but we still show all of the activities that the agent did on that one particular property that you showed, that, by the way, the buyer forgot about because that was 2 months ago. And so it's kind of this, we call it a journey intentionally. It's the journey from beginning to end. So it's playful. It's not like a lawyer bill. It's done in a way where it's not like rubbing it in your face, but it does reinforce value. And it also shows the client about how much time and work they were involved in the process. Does that make sense? So it's really consumer centric, but the agent can justify things if they need to go deeper in it. And I will just simply share with you, there's just two comments that really come out of this experience. We're hearing from buyers. They go, I love it because I know where things are. I know what my agent's doing. I didn't realize they were taking phone calls on Super Bowl Sunday. And I'm not calling my agent as much with anxiety, because I'm being updated in real time on what's happening. So there's a better relationship there. And then, as I mentioned before, a lot of the testimonials we're getting from agents is, ironically, it sounds negative, but it's them realizing that they can't keep doing business the way they've done it, that they need to continue to think about how they adjust their operations. And I've heard a lot of agents say that, like, I'm not going to take on clients if they're not committed to work now. Like, we're not going to work with them for 2 years. I got one guy who went back and added all of his previous appointments and things, and he went back in time, and he realized that he had been working with this client for 2 years, had shown them 36 houses. And you hear these stories and you don't think about it, but when you start to look at it, it's like, you're a charity. You made no
Yeah.
money on that transaction by the time you actually get a deal together. And so there's just a shift that needs to occur in our professional working relationship, and transparency is what creates that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty wild. I mean, when you really think about it, but at the end of the day, and you haven't even mentioned AI. You kind of focused on Rocket, but the truth is, if you try to compete in the stadium, we'll call it the arena, where a place like Rocket is going to destroy you, which is availability and efficiency and follow up and all those things, or AI, for example. If you try to compete with AI, AI is gonna smash you. You have to think about, what can AI not do? What will AI never be able to do that I can do? And it's almost like it's like a 180-degree difference. It's like, I'm going to do it this efficiently, this quickly, blah, 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 blah. And the agent has to actually lean the other direction, which is, I'm going to do all of this stuff for you, which a robot will never be able to do for you, which you'll
Yeah.
never get from an agent at Rocket.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple comments to this because I have these discussions a lot. Like I am not in the camp today, and I'm not saying this just because I'm in the industry. Like I analyze, as you can tell, the industry a lot. I don't think we're at a place where any significant number of buyers are going to try to AI their home buying process. I think that gets different when you are experienced in the process, where you've done it and you have a little more understanding of that process. But it is such an infrequent transaction and it is so expensive that the agent will be there. And I want to get my words correct, in some capacity. There's going to be an advisor to help with decisions in a capacity. I think the question that we all as an industry will be having, what is that capacity? I don't know, but I can tell you that people overwhelmingly today, and that's why you've seen the numbers as I have, use of realtor just keeps going up, is there's just so much misinformation that you want somebody to help guide you through the process. I'll use this as an example. I have this in my keynotes. So back in the 1960s, dual income households in the United States was 30%. Today it's 60. And you think about why, it's because it's so goddamn expensive to live in this country. Everything requires a dual income anymore. So we don't wake up, and I mean, I don't know if you have kids, Jeff. I have a 4-year-old terrorist who I love dearly, but you don't wake up and go, shit, I want to just AI my house today. It's like, I don't have time for any of that crap. Like, I need somebody to help me with this. Like, for me, it's all about outsourcing. So if somebody can explain to me what you're going to do, how it's going to get done, take the work off my back and make this easier for me and my wife and my child, I'll pay you whatever the hell you want. You just need to explain to me what that's worth. So somewhere between that and AI is the next 10 years. But if agents think today that you're going to continue to do the business the same way you've done it, and you think that you don't need to justify your compensation, you are dreaming, because this shit is
Mhm.
coming faster than we realize. And so, that's the crux of where we are. This company, Jeff, has literally been the entire investor network is brokerages, teams, agents, associations, and MLSs. It's got 6 million in investment into the business to build out this system. And I'm giving you a high level. There's a lot of details to how it operates. It requires an agent less than 1 minute a day worth of work. That's how automated the platform is. So it's on this massive growth trajectory, and it's built by the industry, recognizing that we have got to make shifts. We had some seismic shifts that came from the lawsuits. We haven't seen the full impact. Everyone's like, it's business as usual. Nah, we're in the first inning of lawsuits here. You don't think there's going to be claims that are going to come from cooperative compensation or off-market deals? Good luck. Like we are doing so many dumb things right now as an industry that we're not moving forward as fast as we need to. And one of those is people in this country are absolutely strapped for cash. You got the New York Times, I'm going on a rant here, talking crap about our industry, saying that we charge too much. And all the talking points is that the realtor commission is the reason why the housing market is stagnant, which we all know is complete bullshit. So, but that's the talking points. And eventually those become things that people think is reality. And they're going to start to go, well, I'm not paying my agent this much. You're not worth it. So the way I look at it is, you get used to starting to do this now before the pain really comes, and we start to push back on that narrative now, getting it in front of people, getting the agent confidence level up, explaining what our value proposition is, giving the consumer the transparency they deserve. Those are the things that will start to alleviate that talking point. And candidly, as I've said 1,000 times, I think there's an opportunity for people to charge more for convenience and service. You just need to justify what that is. So to me, it's an exciting time. We're going through our last round of fundraising, which is, one of the reasons why we're out on pods talking about this. So if there's people that want to hear more about that, reach out to me. There's a little bit of room left there, but we're about to go to our Series A on the business in the fall, really moving this thing on a mainstream rollout across the US. And by the way, one last comment, the sell side version of the product comes out in 60 days. So we've got the buy side version, think the same product, but for listing agents and sellers, different slight experience, but the same overall concept. So it's a both sides of the industry product that will allow listing agents or buyer's agents to compete at this level. So
What are we talking as far as, can you talk about what this cost might look like to an individual agent or to a brokerage, and what are the options there?
Yeah, so it's depending upon the size of the brokerage. Typical licensing model when we go to a brokerage, depending upon agent count, it goes up or down. We have two different models. We can do a monthly fee. So an individual agent's like $15 a month to have the product, unlimited use. It's nothing. Um,
Cheaper
and
than their
then
chat GPT.
yeah. And then we have what we call an adoption-based model we do as well, where instead of charging monthly, we can allow it so that you only pay on a closed transaction. So what that means is you don't pay monthly and you only pay when a deal is closed through Raise. Not all your deals, just the ones in Raise. And that's around $50 a closing. So we're not charging you monthly, but we're charging you on when the deal closes. The business right now is about adoption. We're getting lots and lots of people on the platform. That's driving up the valuation of the business, which, as I said, we're moving towards our Series A, where we'll take some significant venture funding. And we're rollouts are happening through MLSs. So we're doing things either direct to broker, direct to agent, or now we're opening up partnerships through multiple listing services and associations where they're bringing the product to market through a member benefit. So watch for kind of all of these avenues as the company continues to expand.
Where is the best place to learn more about Raise?
Just go to raise.com. So it's RAYSE.com. You can see the product there. You can inquire there. There's a team behind the scenes. If people are interested in learning more about the investment side, they can just reach out to me directly. And that's just james@raise.com, RAYSE.com. And then you're going to see big deployments. So without naming companies, some of the largest brokerages in the country begin deploying the product next month. So you'll see, mass deployment across the space. It's an industry product for the industry. I didn't build it for NextHome. We built it for the industry. We felt like this is something the industry needs at a time where we've got to get better at what we're doing in our craft. And so it's an exciting opportunity for the industry to get in a better spot. So
Awesome. James, good stuff, man.
yeah,
Thank you
pleasure.
from Lab Coat Agents, which is a lot of real estate agents, for bringing something to the table that I think many of them need. So,
Agreed.
thank you for that. It's not many products that we bring on this on Lab Coat Agents and actually thank them. So, I appreciate it. What you guys are doing is pretty awesome, and I think
Thanks.
this is going to be super valuable to keep humans humaning in their business, which is what we're all after here. So I love it,
Awesome.
man.
Appreciate being here.
Thanks,
Thanks
brother.
for having me. Yep.